Hello and welcome back. Now in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about pivot tables. So now I know in the previous video we have worked with pivot tables, pivot charts, and we have also built a full dashboard using our pivot tables and pivot charts. And now in this video I want us to take a look at something that we haven't really talked about in the other videos. Now, and what I'm going to talk about here is going to bring together some of the knowledge that we have acquired from the previous videos, like the lookups and a few other things. So now in this part, let's say this is a certain store. These are records for purchases in that store. So now we have in this store, we have a product ID. The product ID is, these are for unique products. This is a customer's ID. So every customer, they have a unique identifier, and then we have the amount that's based on whatever product they bought, and then the cost, what it costs the company to make that product, and then the date. Now this is how they record their sales. Now this is one table. Remember that everything we'll be working with, we'll be using flat tables, just one table. So but for this particular company, they have all their customer information on a separate sheet. So the customer's full information, the customer ID, which is like customer key, which is what we have here, which are these numbers here, customer key. So here we have it on the customers table here as the customer key. The geography key is wherever that customer is from. We have the customer name, we have the customer's first and last name, the status, gender, the birth date, everything about that customer, we have it there. Now, this customer information, we don't have it on this sheet. So if we want to fetch information about the customer, we need to find a way to reference anything, look up these values from this place based on this key, which is what we can find here. The same thing with the product. If we want to we just have the product ID, but for us to get the product information, the info is stored on a products table. So this company stores a separate table for all their products. So as a new product is added, they add the information for that product here, the product name, the color, the size, the category, and subcategory of that product. And then also the customer's information, as it is added, they update it here. But this is where the records are kept. So on this record, you don't need to keep every info about the product, because from the product ID, like this 310, I can come here and find out what is 310. Let me find it here. Let me find 310. Just select all. We'll just put 310. And once it filters for me, product key 310, I'll be able to see all the other information for the item that has that product key 310. So the same thing with the customers. From the customer key, we'll be able to come to from the record here. When we want to find any information about this particular identifier for this customer, we have to find a way to look up the values from this key. If you remember what we talked about our lookup, that our lookup value has to be the leftmost column, and that's what we have here for our products and then our customers. So for us to be able to create a pivot chart and a pivot table and be able to use all the information, we had to do some lookups for this our record table. So I've gone ahead to do that for us, and we see here that this other table we had here, record, is stopped at this column, but for here we have added a few columns. This goes to the marital status of the customer. Now what it goes to that table to find is this. Okay, so it goes to that table, looks for customer information there, then it checks for it in the customer's table. So it will go and return a corresponding value for this here in the customers table. So it goes to the customers table, checks there, counts for the marital status. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then of course an exact match. So that's why we have to the customers table 5 columns and an exact match. That's why you have false. Then the same thing applies for the products table to fetch this using this in the products table. So, and so on and so forth. See, we have, because there are about 6 lookups here. Bikes. This also goes to the customers table to see the customer's location there. And then also this same thing for the customers table to see the information, the state where the customer is from. So where they are buying this from. Then we're doing something here called a concatenation. Now, a concatenation is when you are adding 2 texts together. So you're just joining 2 texts together. So if you look here, you see that we have first name and last name. So we want it to return it as 1. So we're doing 2 lookups here. It will look up that particular table, return the first name, and then it will look up the other table, the same customers table. Instead of the third column is the first name, the first column is the last name. Of course, it's going to be an exact match we're looking for. So that's why we're using false there. So once that happens, false. Sorry. So once that happens, once it goes to the table again, is going to help us check again and see the last name, fetch that. Then it's going to concatenate the 2 of them. Now this ampersand sign here is for concatenation. So we're saying get this value for us, then join it to this value as 1 text, which is why you have Cole and Watson. And then we are adding a space in between, which is what this quotation marks is, to signify that you should separate them with a space. So that's how this lookup value works. Goes to this table and fetches that information and drops it here for us. So you can see that we have a couple of lookups that were added, about 6 of them that were added to this table, just to give it more information to work with. So now we're now creating our pivot table straight up from here. So let's create a pivot table from this table here. So we'll come to the insert and we'll put the pivot table. And now the pivot table is called sales, and that's because this table was named sales. If you look here, it's named sales. So if you are going to be working with a lot of tables, it's good to name your sheets and name the tables accordingly, so that when you're doing these operations, you will not get confused. So I'll OK this. And here we have our pivot table, and then we have all our information right here. So let's go ahead and do a few things with this pivot table. I'm just going to real quickly go and put in our amount, the cost, and then let me rename this amount here so that it can be clear. Rename it. Let's rename this. Let's call this revenue instead. Revenue, so that we can know what we're doing. Okay. So let's go back here. Let me refresh this. If I refresh this, we have revenue. Yep. So revenue. Okay. So let us look at it by country. Let's look at it by country. Okay, so you see that we have the cost here, we have the revenue here by the country. So let's, on this table, I want to show you how connected these 2 tables are. Now you remember that if I alter anything here, it's going to be updated there. So I want to create a calculation for the margin. So the margin is basically the difference between the cost and the selling price. So the cost and our revenue. The difference will give us our margin. So a margin or profit, if you like. So once I just type margin there, it creates a new column for me, and then I will add the figures that I want to be on that column. So let me open this so that it's clear. So start writing our formula. I just want to look at the revenue minus the cost. and that will give us the margin. And once you press enter, you will see it fills all the everything on that column. Okay, so now you see we have our margin here. Everything is formatted. Let me make this currency quickly. So you see that everything there, these are the differences between our cost and selling prices. So if I come to my pivot table here, and then I don't have it here yet, so we'll just refresh this, and here we see we have margin there. So I can just add margin, and we have the figures for our margin. Let me format this correctly. So value field settings, trying to see these numbers as currency, and okay. So okay, didn't do for this. Value field settings. Just go ahead and change all of them to currency, so that it's better to look at it that way. Okay, currency. Okay. Now we are seeing what we made as profits from these sales to these countries. So now I want you to look at the percentage. Remember, I showed you percentages when we're first working with pivot tables in one of the earlier videos, where we looked at the percentage of the grand total. But now I want to see what is the margin as a percentage of our margin compared to what it cost us to make it. So how much what's the percentage increase in this? So if you check the difference, what percentage of this is in our cost price? So this is more than half of this. So let us do this calculation and see what we get. There are two ways to go about this, but let me show you the way that you might think. Now you might feel that, okay, since we already did this revenue minus cost, we can just come and add this here. But let's try that, and you see what is wrong with that when we are working with our pivot table. So I'll just make that percentage margin, and to calculate that, we'll just put margin over cost, and then click on enter. Okay, and see what we have here, percentage margin. So let's change this to percentages. Now change the entire column to percentages. So this is what we have here, margin percentage. So let's go back to our pivot table, and let's add this to our pivot table. Let's refresh so that it's added here. Now let's add this to our pivot table. Okay, look at what we have here. We're having a sum of margin. Now let us see if we can let's make this the percentage format. Now this makes no sense. Value field settings. Let's change that to percentage so that it's clear. Okay, now this makes no sense. You're not supposed to see this is 1.6 million%. That's absolutely unreal. And that's why that's happening is because the pivot table doesn't know how we did this calculation. So what it did is that for every, we have a lot of countries. For example, we have Canada, we can see United States. So what it does is that it goes and it adds every margin that we have for every state, and it gives us that sum here. So that's what we have here. So every single margin for every single product that was sold. He went and added it up, and that's what gave us this number. And that's not what we're asking it to do. We're asking it to check for the sum of, to look at every figure or everything in here and everything in here. And since it has given us this calculation, then it should give us this aggregated margin, but it's going to add for every single one. So that tells us that the way we came about to get this margin is not the best way. So I'm going to show you a better way to do it. Let us just go ahead and delete that column because we don't need that. And let's go back to our pivot table. Let's just refresh, and the margin column will disappear. Now, a better way for us to do this is to use the feature called the calculated fields in our pivot. Now, if you come to the Analyze tab here for your pivot table tools, you will see this here where we have fields and settings, fields, item, and sets. So let's create a calculated field. Now, we'll call this the margin percentage, or let me just put it that way, percentage margin. Percentage margin. And what are we doing here? Like we did before, our margin is search field divided by, use the slash, divided by our cost, search field, and then okay, that's okay. Now look at what we have here. Format this field. Let's go ahead and format this field as a percentage and see it come to life. Okay, now this makes a lot more sense. As you can see, we have this is showing us the margins, the margin at the aggregated levels. So for Australia, it gives us this. For France, it gives us this. So which tells us that this is 68% of this. So if we should let's say we apply some kind of, let's add the states in here. Should we add the states, or let us put in the states here and let's just get rid of the countries? You see that we are looking good, and we still have our grand total. If you check it, this is our total margin. It will be this, the percentage of our total cost. So let's put back the country there so you could see what I'm talking about. I'm going to put the states in, or let's put the states. Let's move the countries to our filters. I want to show you something there. So for there are more advanced ways to create these calculated fields. I'm going to look at that in the next video, but this goes a long way to show you, okay, the power of these VLOOKUPs that we had done earlier, how you could make use of them to get information into one view that are scattered all around. And then it also helps you to, I also showed you how you would do this calculation instead of using an Excel table that will that give us the wrong value for the margin. We went ahead to use a calculated field that now gave us a better view than we had. So I'll just change this from sum of, because that sum of can be misleading. So we'll just put margin there. So now you can also do some formatting with your on your pivot table. So to do that, now, we have looked at conditional formatting in our regular Excel tables, but and the pivot table is a little different. So let me show you what happens here. If I want to do, let's say I want to put the data bars here for this here, and I put this here, you can only see it on one cell, so you might be wondering why that is. But then let me come here to, if you click on this thing you see here, search formatting option. Now the way that I want to put it, I want to put it on all cells showing sum of cost value, or all cells showing sum of cost values for state. So let me put it on this first one and see what happens. So if you look at it, you see that we have it applied it even to the grand total, and that's not what we want, because the grand total is way higher. So every other thing is just little bits and pieces in terms of the bars compared to the grand total. So that's not what we want. So we can just come and change it to apply at the values for states. So in every state, the data bars should apply based on state level. So if we do that, we see that California, New South Wales, and a couple of other states are our highest selling states. But let me filter this by country, because we have all the states of different countries here. Let me put the UK. Now let me put the US. I think there are more states there. Okay. So in the US here, we see that we have California, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. are our highest selling states. This is already giving you an idea of what's going on in those states. Okay, let's put it, this is cost, sorry. We're supposed to apply that on the revenue. Let me get rid of the formatting. We're supposed to apply that on the revenue, apply it on the states. Let's clear rows. Let me apply it on the states, on this revenue. So just take notes in case you're following. It's supposed to be on the revenue, not on the okay. So you see here California, well, which is still accurate. California, Oregon, and the other states are highest selling states. You could also, if we decide to, I put the filter up there so that we can maybe look at every other country that we have. So here we have just a few countries here. Let's look at France, Germany. Let's look at Germany. Here we have a couple of them here. So you can immediately just look and you see that, okay, Saarland is our best selling region in Germany. But even though we are selling the most there, that's not our most profitable region. Let's do another formatting on this margin so that you can see what's going on. For the margin, let's put a color scale, and let me just put a color scale to show me. Let's put it on all the margin values. Yeah. So let me open this. Let's check out US, since US has a larger range. So looking at US here, what the color scale formatting does is that it just gives you, puts your numbers in a range where the green is the highest and the red is the smallest. Then everything in between is put in a range from yellow to orange colors. So as you can see here, the lower numbers here are red. The ones that are not as low are beginning to get yellowish, orange-ish, and then we now have the high numbers to be blue. So obviously it's funny, but California, where we made the most revenue, our margin there, which is a lot, compared to some other states where we have we didn't make so much sales here, so what came out is not so much. But in some other states we sold, the margin coming out from there is a lot more compared to some other states that we sold so much. But in terms of revenue, these states are also the ones leading the pack, and compared to our total figure, we're at 71. So that's why I say there was no issue with adding this to our sum total. But let us maybe take it out and see what happens, so that we can clear rows on selected sheets, like a cell. Now clear rows on the selected cell. Yeah, so let me apply it again. I don't want it to be on the entire sheet. I just want it to be for a few things there. And come here, margin values for states. All right, so this looks pretty nice. So you can see how you could apply conditional formatting on your sheet and on your pivot table. So it's not only limited to your pivot, to your regular Excel tables. You can do conditional formattings here, and I showed you a little trick with making calculated doing calculations on your pivots instead of doing it on your Excel tables, which was giving us a wrong result. Remember the margin that we did earlier. So in our next video, we're going to see a more modern way of creating calculations, and then a way to work with tables, because doing these multiple VLOOKUPs, which is the classical way of doing analysis, it increases the size of your file to be so large. So the amount of memory that it takes, to save this and then to look up these values is much compared to what it will take you in the method that I'm going to show you in the next video. So in the next video, we're going to begin working with Power Pivot and begin working with the Excel data model. So I will see you in that next video. Make sure that you go through this, and every data set that we have used so far is going to be made available in the folder, so you can check that out and follow on with the lessons. I'll see you in the next video.